All right, let's dive into something that's, been a huge source of instability for the entire global economy, the US-China trade war. I mean, this is a massive story, and it's reshaping our world in real time, affecting everything from the supply chains that bring us our stuff to the very tech we have in our pockets. When this whole thing started, it was easy to just call it a trade tussle. Kind of sounds small, right? Like just a little spat over imports and exports. But what started as a simple disagreement, well, it spiraled into something way more complex and, frankly, way more important. And that's the real question, isn't it? How on earth does a fight over tariffs blow up into this massive battle for the future of tech and the global economy? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to trace exactly how we got from a simple trade dispute to this full-blown rivalry for what comes next. Okay, so where did this all kick off? Well, it started with the most visible part of the conflict, and honestly the most chaotic. This was the first round of the fight, a phase defined by one thing: direct, escalating, retaliatory moves. And the pattern was, well, simple and pretty brutal. The US would hit China with a new round of tariffs, and then almost immediately, China would come right back and, as the sources put it, slap retaliatory tariffs on American stuff. I mean, that word slap, it just perfectly captures how aggressive and reactive this whole phase was. So what exactly are these retaliatory tariffs? Well, think of it this way. If somebody punches you, what's your first instinct? To punch back, right? That's basically it. A retaliatory tariff is just the economic version of punching back. It's not some grand, complex strategy. It's a direct response meant to cause just as much pain as you just felt. And that's exactly why the phrase tit for tat is the perfect way to describe this. It really is an eye for an eye kind of thing. Every single action from one side was met with an equal counteraction from the other. And when you get into a cycle like that, it just keeps escalating, and it becomes incredibly hard to stop.
But as this whole tariff battle was raging, it started to become pretty clear that this wasn't just about trade numbers anymore. You had to ask the question, is this really about tariffs? Or are the tariffs just a symptom of something much, much deeper going on between these two countries?
And this is where the whole story really takes a turn. We're shifting gears now, moving away from those reactive punches and counter punches. We're getting into a much more strategic, much more long-term idea, this concept of a great economic decoupling. Okay, so picture this. For decades, you've had these two giant gears, the US economy and the Chinese economy, and they've been interlocked, turning together, basically driving the entire global machine. Decoupling is this massive, monumental effort to actually pry those gears apart. It's about completely rewiring how the whole global economy works, all to reduce how much they depend on each other. But you have to wonder, why would anyone want to do that? I mean, why try to separate the two biggest economies in the world? Well, because we get to the real heart of the matter, the real fight, the thing this is actually all about. It's not soybeans or steel anymore. The real battlefield is technology. And that shift, it changes absolutely everything. This isn't just a trade war anymore. No, it has evolved into a full-on war for technology. And this is the arena, right here, where the real battle is being fought. The battle for who's going to have the most influence, the most security, and who's going to lead the world in the future. So, to fight this war, the US has rolled out a very specific set of economic weapons. And this isn't random stuff. It's a real coordinated strategy. It starts with tackling something that's been a concern for a long time, intellectual property theft. Then it moves to clamping down on the flow of tech with things called export controls. And finally, it gets really specific by targeting individual companies with something called the entity list. So first up, intellectual property. Look, for years, the US has been saying that American companies are having their most valuable secrets, their inventions, their trade secrets, systematically stolen. And this isn't just a business disagreement. It's seen as a fundamental threat, and it's a huge reason why America has become so protective of its technology. Okay, the next weapon in the arsenal, export controls. The best way to think about these is like a choke point, or a way to just turn off the tap. The government can use these rules to limit or even completely block the sale of critical American tech to other countries. We're talking everything from advanced software to the designs for semiconductors, and it's all done in the name of national security. And then there's maybe the most targeted weapon of them all, the entity list. What is it? It's basically a trade blacklist. It's that simple. If a foreign company gets put on this list, it's like they've been kicked out of the club. It becomes incredibly hard, sometimes impossible, for them to get their hands on U.S. technology, which effectively cuts them off from huge parts of the global supply chain. So, after all the tariff fights and the tech battles, where does all this leave us today? Well, the dust definitely has not settled. Instead, this whole conflict has morphed into what you could call an enduring confrontation. It's like this is the new normal, a tense, complicated relationship that's here to stay.
Now, that doesn't mean it's all-out war 24/7. We've definitely seen moments of calm, right? Times where you'd see headlines about a truce in the trade tussle, and both sides would agree to kind of hit the pause button and actually talk. But here's the crucial thing to remember. A truce is not the same as peace. Pausing the tariff fight doesn't solve the much deeper battle over technology and global influence. Those fundamental disagreements, they're all still there, just kind of simmering right below the surface. And you can see this stalemate playing out right now. The US is still putting curbs on high-tech chips, using that as leverage. And what does China do? It responds by putting its own export curbs on rare earth minerals, which, and this is the ironic part, are essential for making those exact same high-tech electronics. So yeah, the tit for tat is still going on. It's just happening in a much, much higher stakes game now.
And bubbling under all of this is one of the issues that kicked this whole thing off in the first place. America's huge and long-standing trade deficit with China. For decades, the U.S. has bought way, way more from China than it sells to them. And that imbalance has always been a source of political tension because it often gets blamed for the loss of manufacturing jobs here. It just adds another complicated layer to this whole mess. So, what's the final takeaway here? Well, it seems pretty clear. This is not some short-term problem that's going to get an easy fix. All the signs are pointing to a long-term confrontation that's now just a permanent feature of our world. It's probably going to drag on for a long, long time, and it's going to keep reshaping global politics and economics for a generation to come. So as these two giants keep changing their relationship, and as they create these cracks in the global system that we've all gotten used to, it leaves us with one massive critical question. In a world that's becoming more and more divided, what comes next?